Welcome. We are broadcasting live from the mothership. You are tuned in and listening to Starseed Energy Radio with your host Jonah Bolt. Starseed Energy Radio, where you can always tune in to hear the colors and see the music. Starseed Energy Radio goes live in 3, 2, 1.
All right, what's up, Spaceship Earth? Thanks for tuning in. You are now receiving a live transmission from Starseed Radio, where you can always tune in to hear the colors and see the music. I'm your host, Jonah Bolt, the Arcturian Starseed. Today is Friday, August 14th, 2015. We have an awesome show lined up for you today, as always. But first, I want to mention, check out StarseedRadio.com for the latest news and updates. We're always posting up new articles, new feeds. We have our new live earthquake and volcano watcher, as well as space weather at StarseedRadio.com. And all the articles, information we do talk about, we do post up also on our Facebook page. So please go to our Facebook page, like us, follow our Twitter feed. And if you haven't called our toll-free number to receive information about our free Elite Shungite that we're sending out to you, please call toll-free 888-400-2328 anytime, 24/7. If someone does not pick up, just leave us a voicemail and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. Again, that toll-free number is 888-400-2328, and we will also send you some free energy information. We have about 15 PDF files I would love to send out to you. Just fill out the form if you want on starseedtechnologies.com, or you could just ask us when you call the toll-free number. Again, that's 888-400-2328. With that, we have a very special guest joining us on this show today, Brad Kallio. He'll be coming on in just a minute after our daily download with Ryan Matthew Dernick. And on the second half of the show, we're going to be joined by Edward Twitchell Hall III, one of the original organizers in Occupy Wall Street movement. He has done some amazing work since Occupy and is involved with a lot of different new movements to sustain the planet, work with indigenous people, and he is a way shower of the light all over the planet. We'll be joined by Edward Twitchell Hall in just a minute. With that being said, we're going to start off this show with our daily quote. We are broadcasting live from San Jose, Costa Rica, the capital. The quote for today goes, "The scientists of today think deeply instead of clearly. One must be sane to think clearly, but one can think deeply and be quite insane." That quote from our boy, Nikola Tesla. I'll post that little quote up on our Twitter feed and also starseedradio.com and also our Facebook. And with that, we're going to jump into the news of what's happening with Mother Earth Gaia today with the daily download with Ryan Matthew Dernick from bellweatherpost.com. Ryan, good morning. How are you today?
Very well, Jenna. How you doing today?
Doing good. I don't hear any screaming kids today, so sounds like you're in a quiet area.
Well, they're in the distance right now. We're at the pool.
There you go. Excellent. Well, let's get the daily download going. What's happened with Mother Gaia today? I know lots of changes are happening. Please give us a download.
Definitely. Well, solar activity in regards to solar flares is returning very low levels following a brief flurry of minor flares from the new sunspot AR2401. As the growth in the sunspot is slowed, however, so its rate of flare production. NOAA forecasters estimate only a 10% chance of an M-class flare or any kind of solar flare over the next day or so. And in regards to other news, earthquake activity is on the uptick. There was a 2.5 magnitude earthquake early this morning in New Jersey town, and preceding that, Queensland, Australia, had an earthquake as well off the central coast. East Central Coast near Queensland again, and that's just one in many tremors. This tremor was only a magnitude 4.0 near Hervey Bay in Noosa just after 11 a.m. on Friday. They said, though, don't worry, it's just an aftershock from the preceding earthquake. So as of right now, the local geological survey in Australia is saying that everything should be fine there. And in regards to other news, the USGS says that nearly half Americans in the United States, about 148 million Americans in the United States, in a new report are susceptible to earthquakes. As we know, the California and the Pacific Northwest with the Wanda Cook and the Cascadia subduction zone, but certain areas that you may not know actually can experience high hazard earthquakes are in South Carolina, where they had an earthquake in the mid-19th century. It was a pretty sizable earthquake at 7.0. So we have to keep in mind that there are areas that earthquakes can occur, even in the northeast United States, where they give it a high possibility of an earthquake. So that being said, a lot of people have to be very aware that earthquakes can and do happen throughout the United States. It's one of the more geologically active continents. North America is one of the more geologically active continents in the world. So on to other news in regards to other events going on. People may not know this, but the El Nino essentially has really put a damper on any hurricane activity in the Atlantic Basin. However, in the Western Pacific, it's been a gangbuster year with Sodalor and many other typhoons that have impacted Taiwan as well as the Philippines and mainland China. And they're saying that this could end up being a super El Nino, which would bode well later into the winter and fall if it comes out to be like the 97 event. In the 97 event, there was a lot of rain for the Western United States. So that being said, we could actually see some drought. The drought curtail itself later into the fall and winter in California, because right now they have such deficits along with the wildfires going on currently still over there. And in regards to other news globally, China is after the explosion in Tianjin, which is about 70 miles east of Beijing. It was a burgeoning port town. And we were talking about this yesterday, John, later in the evening about the videos that we saw of how tremendous this explosion was. And they said the mushroom cloud was only a 20-story building, but you look at this mushroom cloud on the second explosion, which was equivalent to 21 tons of TNT, or about the third explosive capability of a tactical nuclear weapon. Right now,
China's news is reporting that only 40 people died or something like that. We know that they're
now it's
obviously
up to 56 now.
Yeah, 56. My butt. We know a lot more people perish than that. If you saw the aerial footage like we were watching last night when we were talking, you see entire 10, 20-story buildings just gutted out. This explosion was way more than 20 stories high, but we all know that China is a communist country, and they tell the people what they want, so we're definitely not going to get the full story.
No, that's always the case, because they have much more stringent controls than the United States does in regards to making sure that they don't have any leaking of information. In regards to other news, Russia and NATO are actively preparing for war. And as we know, if you know the history of NATO was originally created to actually put Russia in check. That was the reason that alliance was created in the first place. And now we've really slid back toward a Cold War mentality ever since the East Ukrainian occupation. And supposedly there are intelligence coming out from the U.S. as well as international intelligence agencies saying that the war is figuratively so bad between separatists in Ukraine and the Russian occupation in eastern Ukraine that Russia has actually mobile Praetorians, which is pretty alarming. But they basically are saying, the think tank, that this could lead to a larger escalation and possible a greater war conflict between NATO and Russia.
And this is a story we've been covering for a while, because this story could really, throw us right into World War III. It's a story that you should not ignore. This is a good a story to follow to see the propaganda that's going on both sides. Russia, Putin saying, Russia has no involvement, but then if you look at like Vice News and other things that are embedded in Ukraine, you could totally see that there are Russian troops, and the Russian troops are even taking selfies and posting it on Instagram inside Ukraine, and Putin's on TV saying, Russian soldiers, we're not in Ukraine. But then if you go to their Facebook page of Russian soldiers, like many documentaries have pointed out, they're definitely in Ukraine. A cool article also I wanted to mention, this one is Google is testing drones in U.S. airspace by piggybacking on a NASA exemption. So now Google is putting drones in space. Interesting article. And also the consensus record of 42.1 million immigrants in U.S. now, which Mexicans drive the latest surge. But the growth in just the last year, 100,000 Mexican immigrants, according to the Center for Immigration Studies. And this is a big issue because as they're allowing immigrants to come in, flowing into Mexico, you also have the violent offenders. You have violent crime offenders, sex offenders coming in, drug dealers, and they know this now that the border is pretty much wide open, and they are just coming over in the droves. You're talking about, 42 million new immigrants coming in. Where are they all going? Who is feeding them? It's like this is a big story.
And in regards to the immigrants, they said that over the next, I believe, 30 years, there's going to be anywhere from 100 to 150 million new immigrants coming through the porous border, which is totally open like Swiss cheese along the and other surrounding states along the Mexican border. So this is just an ongoing issue, and surprisingly, that's the reason that Donald Trump is getting so popular. He's ringing well with people's sentiment on the Democrats as well as Republicans in regards to, he's saying some things that are actually valid, talking about how our border security is pretty much not even existent.
Another big article that came out, have you heard this one? Open source plans for modern Tesla free energy generator released to the public. And this article just came out, and the story of Nikola Tesla is a remarkable story. If people do not know who he is, it's a reminder of how our economic, political, and media systems create our reality, because it shows how human ingenuity can be co-opted, shut down, taken over, and hushed by powerful people with financial interests at stake. And I'll post this article also up. There are many designs. Like I said, contact us at starseedcommunications.com, and we'll send you some also PDFs on free energy devices. And that's why our special guest, Brad, is going to join us in just a minute. He's going to talk about some of his amazing projects. We met Brad a few months ago in Detroit. What other news is happening in the world today, Brian?
Well, in regards to other news, there's been a backsliding effect on all the stock globally and all stock markets as another day throughout the week, devaluing of the yuan currency, the Chinese currency, is causing tech stocks to have a slight sell-off and a flatlining effect in regards to the global stock markets. They're even showing the front runners, Germany being one of them, in the euro, are actually showing the contraction in growth, especially in manufacturing. They're down a tenth of a percent. So what we're seeing now is basically like everything being put in check, because everyone is interconnected to the trade agreements that we have with China because of the further devaluing of their currency.
All right. Thank you so much,
and
Ryan.
finally,
go ahead. One more article. Go for it.
Game of Thrones individual today is the Greek Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras. He's facing the widest rebellion yet from the leftist lawmakers as Parliament has approved their next bailout. So it's just another.
Our Game of Thrones official person of the day.
€1 billion.
There you go. And his name, once again, the official Game of Thrones person of the day.
Is Alexis Tsipras, the Greek Prime Minister.
Alexis Tsipras, Greek Prime Minister.
To get further into debt.
There you go. Awesome. We'll check out some of Ryan's articles on bellwetherpost.com, and I'll post up a nice meme about the Greek Prime Minister, our Game of Thrones person of the day. Ryan, thank you as always for the daily download. We'll talk to you on Monday.
Thank you.
And with that, we're going to bring our first guest onto the show. This gentleman is one of the leading engineers, I would say, in the forefront of bringing new types of technology, innovation to the forefront to sustain this planet. I met with Brad myself when I was with Kelly going cross-country. We covered 26 states in 5 weeks, seeing all different new inventions, technologies, and Brad was by far one of the most interesting people we met because he has a lot of these technologies and innovations up and running at a very amazing farm that he has all sorts of projects going on, from wind turbines to hydroponic, electroponic. We have all sorts of different things going off on the farm. I'll let Brad tell you about that. But his company is Zynoc.com. Brad, are you with us?
I think so. Am I on now?
Yes, you are. Excellent. Welcome to Starseed Radio, Brad. It's good to have you back on the air. Excellent. So if you would tell the listeners, Brad, where and how did you get to the point of working and engineering and designing your technology? Did it start as a little kid? Did you have an awakening? And tell us, about this amazing farm that we visited when we saw you in Detroit a few months back.
Wow. Okay. I'll see what I can do.
Take it away.
Well, let's see. 5, 6 years of age, I put my finger in a light socket in a lampshade, just my pinky. Kind of freaked me out, but I noticed it didn't hurt me, so I tried it again, and I was amazed at how it felt. So it made me curious of what this invisible force was I was playing with. So if you want to go that far back, I guess that's probably where I got the curiosity about electricity and energy. By the time I was 14, I was fixing cassette players for the ladies at my mom's church and things. Most of the time just cleaning cookie dough out of them, but for the most part, it was a good, easy way for a 14-year-old kid to make money. From there, I got into electronics in high school. I went to a few different schools, graduated from a couple colleges, the same old, and then got married, had kids, that sort of thing, started doing robotics, automation work. The economy kind of changed, and all of the general manufacturing jobs started to disappear, and so did my job. So it started to get very complicated fast. So I moved into the entertainment world, started doing lighting, automated lighting for bands and that kind of thing. That was a lot of fun. But eventually I met a cat named Paul Walker on one of the projects doing a phase converter job. And he helped me answer a lot of questions to things I was doing when was Hurricane Katrina, and when Indonesia got hit by that tsunami a few years earlier. I was looking into developing a new design for a home that would survive the crazy weather extremes we were now getting. I mean, when Hurricane Katrina hit, I says, man, why are we still making square houses? You know what I mean? Still there?
Now, your farm that you have up and running, that you're working with all these different experiments and different new devices, how did that come to be?
Okay. Well, I guess I was getting to that. I was just very silent in a sense. I thought I lost connection on my cell phone. I didn't know. That happened before. Anyway.
No worries.
Yeah. Building the Enviro House concept that I had took me down a path of, survivability. And then I ran into the energy situations, and I realized that energy, where we get our energy from, is the leading cause of all the other problems that we have. It's the underpinning function, because it's what's being used, it's corrupting the type of food we eat, it's affecting what they're putting in the food with the poisons. It affects, because they have to do something with the leftover garbage from oil, which is toxic. They've been spraying it on the roads. For a while, and the EPA says, no, you're poisoning the ground. You can't do that to keep the dust out anymore. So they started manufacturing other things with all this material. But the process itself is incredibly dirty and very destructive. So anyway, I realized that we needed to change and go to a clean energy system. And we also had to change how we were making the types of food. And we started learning about health issues and what natural remedies were already out there we could take that didn't require the pharmaceutical, petroleum-based, pesticide-type medicines they were giving us. So it was a big learning curve for me in the past few years. Once I realized that it was more down to a survival of the species kind of thing, I moved into coming up with the solutions to that rather than fixing stereos and that kind of thing. So just different kinds of problems to fix. I look at myself as a solutionist. As a job title today. And the farm that we're working on is one of the solutions being developed right now. There's quite a few in the country happening, but I just happen to be involved in this one. I've put a wind turbine that's probably one of the most efficient in the world that I've ever seen on the property. It's still the prototype under construction and development, testing. And there's also a solar panel array to run the water. But basically, the farm industry is self-containing that way. And then they're growing all of their herbs and all of their foods are all organically based, no fertilizers or pesticides, all permaculture technology. And it's been a very good learning curve for me in a lot of directions working on this farm with all these people. Got kids from Michigan State working on it. So I hope that answers your question.
Absolutely. When we were out visiting the farm, I know we saw your wind turbine that was also, helped supported by magnets and things like that to have it move and power a very large amount of power, which is very little wind, which is a very innovative design you have. You've also had your solar powered little like golf cart you designed that uses no fuel or anything like that. You also had your mobile wind turbine you bring to show people, educate people about how easy it is to create simple devices to create energy. If you would, Brad, tell us what do you know, or what would you say about the future of free energy? Do you feel free energy will be released, like the article I just talked about, the Nikola Tesla generator, open source generator? Do you see the world going that way? Is free energy in our future?
No, it's already here. It's not going to stop. What is the saying? The train has left the station. The cat's out of the bag. So, yeah, that's there. There's too many people working on it. Maybe even the stuff that the military has been hiding for years is now being revealed. So, pardon me. Yeah, star drives. We're going to see space soon. I don't see anything that can slow that down now. The fact that we can, you're in Costa Rica and we can talk like this over the phone, over the internet, I view this as the technology of the Jetsons, and this technology has really allowed us to see the fact that we still have an operating system based on the thinking of the Flintstones. So, man can make fire. We really need to evolve beyond that, and because of this technology, we are. The paradigm shift is at hand. So, to answer your question, yes.
And you see companies like Tesla and other ones coming out with, like these batteries and things like that. But really, like you said, these free energy devices, like the Hendersloot generator, came out in 1918 in Detroit. And that was one of the first fuelless generators. It was on the cover of many magazines and newspapers across the country, but then it was quietly taken over by the military, and Mr. Hendersloot was found dead not too long later. So we've seen that in the past as well, but you're right. I think that free energy is here. Many people are working on it, and the future is free energy, just like the ancients had. Where could people find information, Brad, on free energy and your website, Zynoc, which is zynoc.com? You have information on clean food, permaculture, transportation, shelter, education. So you're involved in basically the whole round picture. It's not just about supplying energy, but also food, permaculture, shelter. What are some other resources you could recommend to listeners out there to learn more about free energy?
Okay. Well, that's one of the things about being a jack of all trades, is that you get to see enough of all the different trades that you can kind of be a puzzle master, be able to put things together, because this can be done with this and that can be done with this. And so, yeah, it puts you in a good position that way to, oh, shoot, now I forgot what I was going to do. Did you ask me again?
To give out some information on where people could find some resources on free energy.
Oh, right. Resources. Okay. The 0 Point Energy YouTube. You'll have to filter through a lot of it. You can always go to my Facebook page and ask me questions if I've done the experiment or not. Because a lot of the times I see stuff that looks cool, so I'll try it and find out if it really is or not. And like the rodent coil, it does what they say it will do. But they don't go into enough detail to explain all the functions. They don't talk about the 7 layers you have to produce to actually get the over unity loop kind of thing. So there's a lot of stuff out there, but there's a lot of oil money driven propaganda out there that's just misleading, just to keep people chasing wild goose chases. The existing operating system, which is our oil money based system, has a lot of incentive to discourage people from that, because it's survival. It doesn't want to have that taken away. It's like a living organism, and it's not going to do anything to support something that's going to kill it. So it's kind of what we're doing in the paradigm shift. That's what it's kind of like in an organic mindset. Other sources would be, look up anything on. It's all on the internet. It really is. Your sources are going to be there. There are people doing it. Tesla Motors. If you want to learn about the electric cars, you can go there and learn about that. fact, I'm not too far from there right now. I'm in California, and hopefully going to get over that way in the next few days to have a chat with someone. And anyway, but you can go to Zero Electric Motorcycles and learn about the bikes if you want to get a really nice motorcycle. I got to actually take a ride on one of those recently. I can't even begin to describe how cool that is. I'm going to take time out to actually emphasize. I can't even describe to you how cool riding a Zero Electric motorcycle is. I don't make a profit selling it. It's just unbelievable. I went 1,000 feet a second, turning the volume knob on a handle with no sound. Just glided through the air. Amazingly, it'll go 100 miles on a charge. It'll go roughly 100 miles an hour, and you can charge it in an hour if you have the right charging system for it. So
amazing.
It gives you some really amazing abilities.
And I just wanted to give
it's awesome. Yep.
I just wanted to give a shout out to Sterling Allen with PureEnergySystems.com. He has an amazing resource guide as well. I'm sure you're familiar with him. They have the top 100 energy devices on there. That's PureEnergySystems.com. Great resource. We'll hopefully get Sterling Allen on the radio show pretty soon. I just spoke to him about 2 months ago. I ran some other things past him. But Brad, thank you so much for coming on. Your website again is Zynoc, ZYNOC.com. Anyone can contact Brad anytime. Brad, keep doing your amazing work, and thank you for all your research and stuff you've done thus far.
Very good. Have a good one.
Thank you. You're listening to Starseed Radio. We'll be right back.
Even the Declaration of Independence was made on hemp paper. Thomas Jefferson had hemp fields. Let me tell you other things, organically grown hemp yields. Jack Herring tried to tell us the news. We can even use the seeds to...
The greatest form of control is where you think you're free when you're being fundamentally manipulated and dictated. One form of dictatorship is being in a prison cell and you can see the bars and touch it. The other one is sitting in a prison cell but you can't see the bar, you think you're free. What the human race is suffering from is mass hypnosis. We are being hypnotized by people like this. Newsreaders, politicians, teachers, lecturers. We are in a country and in a world that is being run by unbelievably sick people. The chasm between what we're told is going on and what is really going on is absolutely enormous.
That is right. Some words from our guy, David Icke. If you know who David Icke is, check him out. Now we're joined by our next guest on Starseed Radio. Check out starseedradio.com for the latest news and updates. We're being joined by Mr. James Rink from SuperSoldierTalk.com. James has been on the forefront of connecting super soldiers all over the world to come forward to share their experience, because their experience is sort of, how do you say, out of this world, to say the least. James, welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm good. Thank you, Jonah.
Absolutely. So, James, if you would just give a little background to the listeners out there that are not familiar with super soldiers. We've had you on the show before, but we're always getting new listeners. What is a super soldier? How would you explain it to a listener that is not familiar what a super soldier is?
Okay. Well, there are different definitions, but the one that I'm going by is what you would consider a MILAB or MELAB, which is a military abduction. Basically, what's going on is that it appears that that the ETs have been abducting humans for a very long time. Depending, what treaties you want to look at, but even before then, I'm sure it was going on. And they've been modifying human DNA with their own ET DNA. Now, the ETs have their own race of, well, I call them race. They're hybrids of super soldiers. What I believe the reptilians create, they call them super special soldiers, or Circe. And they have a helmet, like a glass plate on their head. They're usually like 6'3" or 5", and then they're partially cybernetic. They have nanotechnology built into them. Now, the reptilians use them for missions off-world and so on. But when the military started experimenting on their own super soldiers, soldiers back. This would been during the Korean War initially. What they would do is they would find individuals who had psychic abilities. Usually these would be Native American or those with the Irish DNA, Celtic DNA, because they had more clairvoyance. And they would try to find, for instance, maybe as far as a super psychic ability, being able to, say, stopping or slowing time and altering the fabric of the reality of whatever the war, the battlefront. But it wasn't really like, I mean, some of them also had superhuman strength and so on. But these were, well, I mean, they were born into these programs, but they weren't hybridized. That came on later online around the 1960s and 70s with the Greys were working with the military, and the Reptilians started working with the military on creating hybrids to become super soldiers. I was part of one of these original batches, and what happened with me in my particular case is that I was considered a failed project. I didn't do what they wanted us to do. They were trying to make us into what you would call a total mind control slave. And I'm sure there was a lot of what you would call Mark Ultra programming. They were trying to trigger me remotely. They would put us in what is known as trip seats. This, again, has to do a lot with what's going on in Montauk. And for me, on a soul level, it was, I'm basically an anomaly where that they, it's kind of complicated to explain, at least this part, but look at it this way, that most people would not have been able to go through the things that I went through and still be sane. Because I was so resistant towards their programming, what they would do, they just kept jacking up the pain and the trauma, thinking that they could try to split us. Instead, what they did is they turned us into potatoes and vegetables. But I was able to kind of survive it all, but to a certain extent, you call my life surviving. But what happened is that I guess they tried to recuperate us using nanotechnology by giving us nano injections and trying to control us that way. And this is where I believe the avatar technology comes into play. According to the information I gathered on my so-called file that I was able to gather, it appears that they started switching over from creating physical super soldiers, taking young children, programming them, sending off in the battlefield around 1998, and they started adopting avatar technology. Now, I could be wrong on some of this, but these avatars were called Cybus, or actually it might have been Arbus and then Cybus. I have to look at my notes on that. But I believe it's actually called Cybus now. And I can't tell you exactly what the difference between an Arbus and a Cybus is. But maybe if we can get some reptilians calling into the show to help answer some questions, that would be amazing. But
I'm sure they're listening.
Yeah, I was actually told that my videos, my interviews that I do are all translated and sent off on the spaceships, and a lot of different groups of ETs are watching them, which I think is great. But unfortunately, they have their rules of non-interference, so I haven't had too much help with getting any more information in a while. The last time I had some help was through an entity. Well, I call it a being named Tian. It's not really an entity. He's a being. He was physical flesh, but he was a reptilian. Well, he called himself reptilian, but I later found out he was a reptilian insectoid hybrid. No, maybe I might be wrong in this, but he was he's 12 foot tall, and he had like a long snout, crocodile snout, reptilian with a tail, and I asked him how much he weighed, and I asked for a personal visitation, and his response is he'll tear up my floorboards. So, but the information that I was able to gather through TN was that my files are in Iowa, and that I was part of the Orion Club organization. So maybe there's people out there who might have some kind of resonance to any of the stuff that I'm saying, but he was mad. He was angry at me because I didn't remember who he was, and he said he saved my life. They sent me on a mission off world and left me to die. They didn't, obviously, I guess they weren't recovering my body from this mission, and he saved me. And so, unfortunately, I didn't remember what they're doing. But I do get needle marks on a fairly regular basis, meaning every day. Although I don't check every day, I used to check every day. I have a lot of pictures on my website, supersoldiertalk.com. Maybe if you do a search for needle marks, you can see what some of these marks look like. I'm sure there's many people out there who are being experimented on by the military, and they're getting little triangular-shaped scabs, triangular-shaped injection marks, like three-pronged injection marks, scratches, and laser marks, maybe waking up having unusual bruising. And then there's other things that can take place as well, implants, scoop marks, and so on. So, and not everybody, first of all, some people, some of these starseed hybrids, their DNA is being harvested by the military to be used as super soldiers. So just because you might be getting these marks may not necessarily mean you're a super soldier. It just means that someone's experimenting on your DNA. They're either harvesting it or they're injecting you with nanites to mutate your DNA into whatever it is. Their hybridization, their programs that they're working on. But anyway, they can do all these things and tinker here and mess around there, but ultimately you are you. It's your soul that makes you who you are, and you have the power to resist or take control of your own mind, and I think that's one of the reasons why we haven't seen all the cataclysms on this timeline. Am I doing good on time? I don't... Speaking of timelines.
Absolutely. And
Okay.
I just want to say, James, I met you, about 5 years ago when I was in Asheville and Charlotte. And when I first heard your story, it's very hard for people to believe, the extent of my labs and underground facilities. But as you actually dig through information and military, and I've had literally hundreds of guests on the show, and you yourself have been connecting with dozens, if not hundreds, of super soldiers all over the world. I've watched many of your videos, and I urge people to check out your YouTube channel. Everyone has this vague memory. They're waking up, and when you have these memories or dream states of being worked on in my labs, you don't believe it yourself sometimes. And who are you gonna go talk to about your DNA being harvested and working underground facilities? But as we know, Eisenhower met with ETs and made pact. Hitler met with ETs. We have many files have been released, showing that, pictures, things like that. When you really look into the factual data of this, yes, there are contracts that presidents have done for technology with ETs. They are allowed to harvest a certain amount of humans each year for DNA testing, things like that. That's where you have over 3 million Americans alone have reported being abducted by ETs. That's a staggering number. That's more than 1% of our population, that has been reported abducted by ETs. That's huge. So for people to ignore factual data like that is, for one, not being open to some real information.
I totally agree with you on that. I think what we're about to see is a huge disclosure going to take place here. Perhaps with the collapse of the dollar, people will start to realize and start to question their government and the system on basically how they've been lied to. And once that dam starts to crack and starts to leak, which is what it's doing right now, it's just totally going to be, eventually it's going to be a total tsunami, and all this information is going to come out. What we're talking about now may seem sort of far-fetched, but mark my word, I don't know how long it's going to take, maybe within the next 20 years, we're going to start seeing stuff like super soldiers, mind control, the children being taken to underground bases for pedophilia, and just all this just horrendous stuff that's taking place is going to be in the public forum, directly on things you never think will be on the news, will be on the news. Aliens, all this stuff, the cabal, just how humanity has been lied to. So it's hard to conceive this at this time, but it will happen, and at least that's what's been relayed to me by people who are contactees and are given glimpses of the future. They basically see super soldiers being interviewed on TV and so on. Things, like I said, you would never imagine could be possible. It's going to happen. And not only that, the suppressed technologies are going to come out. Technologies like replicator machines. Andrew Basiago claims that by 2045, teleportation is as common as the escalator today. So, we're about to go to an amazing world, but it's going to be difficult because people are going to have to wake up. And it's almost like, think of it as a child growing up and needing larger shoes. It's just, it's not going to be something scary. I mean, well, some of the information may scare some people, but it's just a natural process where people are going to just have to learn. They're going to have to learn to accept this new reality, what's going on, because this is what's happening. Anyway.
And I think also, James, if you look back to factual information like the Mayans and the Aztecs and the Hopis and, the Egypt, all of them at some point mention, talk about the crocodile people, the lizard people. They're referring to reptilians. They talk about the giants, the Anunnaki. I mean, it's all over the planet, which is why religion was so hardly pushed around the world, and ancient sites were crushed and churches were built on top of them. And, great halls of Alexander were burned with information. I mean, this has been going on to erase this part of humanity's history for a very long time. But if you look at the pyramids and every sacred site around the planet, they're all perfectly aligned down to the centimeter of star systems, of star nations that are here, that have been here for a very long time. So again, the listeners out there, they're like, this may be crazy, a little hard to imagine. This is old information we're talking about here. This has been going on for tens, if not hundreds of thousands of years, manipulating DNA, doing different research on different genomes and stuff here on the planet. This is old news. And now you see the different skeletons being found all over the planet, the giants, 40-foot, 60-foot humans, the cone heads that have been found all over the planet. Those are ETs. They're not humans. They're not like retarded babies that came out with like crazy big heads. They're finding them by the droves all over the planet. So this is factual data. My labs are underground facilities all over the planet. We've had many guests on the shows talk about them. I've had guests on the show talk about how they've worked in my lab side by side with Greys and ETs. This is, everyone's not crazy making up these stories. Just for you to come on the air and just talk about this stuff is a big thing for you. It just personally, it must have taken you a while. I did an interview with you on your show about a year and a half ago when I had my own personal attack by the military-industrial complex, if you remember that. And that was a wild story, but that was a real experience. That really happened to me, and that's because of the information we are letting out to the world. And that happens, and it happens to many of us. But again, we are bearers of the light. This entire matrix is made of light, and as bad as these ETs and everyone else thinks they are, you know what? At the end of the day, this reality is made of light. So, you keep that up the forefront, and you're going to be okay being a bearer of truth and getting this information out. Super soldiers all over the world are waking up. I've seen you do dozens, if not hundreds of interviews with them from London, from England, all over the place, that are coming forward, that are having these memories. James, where can people find out some more information on super soldiers and watch some videos and other research and stuff that's been done?
Certainly supersoldiertalk.com. Another good resource would be with Miles Johnston and his interviews, the Basis series on YouTube. Also, Simon Parks is a good resource. I highly encourage you to also look into Corey Good and David Wilcock with their with the series that's going on in Gaiam TV. That's a good resource information on that, about first contact as well. And, there are other super soldiers out there as well, and I say that loosely. A lot of these individuals call themselves different names, but you could do some research on certainly Montauk, and I'm trying to remember a name of another individual but this guy also went through Montauk as well, so that's probably another good place to start. But yeah, so if you could just go, you could visit Super Soldier Talk. Also, some of my other projects and websites that I'm working on is Pantasia, which is my goal was to help people with who's been through trauma, and that website is healingsoulsurvivors.org. You can go check Pantasia out, which is basically biodome gardens with holograms in there, novel holograms that will have certain frequencies to help people with trauma. And I'm currently putting together a business plan to try to get that set up and rolling. And I also have my other project I'm working on is the Neo meditation device, which is you can find that at www.neologicaltech.com, and these are basically meditation cubes that to help bring chi energy in your body so you can relax, and through meditation you can help release trauma. Now that's certainly one way to do it. There's other ways you can do it as well, and I totally, we can talk about that for a long time, but meditation is simple and easy. It doesn't have to be complex, or it could be complex if you want it to be. But certainly that's one of the ways you can try to help bring integration to yourself if you feel you've been through some of these projects, or even people who haven't been through these projects.
I was talking to Ryan yesterday about the famous George Norrie episode, like maybe 10 years ago, where someone was on the run and they called into the station and they were relaying some really important information to George Norrie's Coast to Coast radio show. And then the entire radio station power got shut off. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. You can hear the clip on YouTube, and people like yourself and me, and there's many of us now talking truth and getting this information out. And really, at the end of the day, we don't know every detail. We're going off memories and happening in dream state and astral realms and higher dimensions. I mean, try to articulate that to just your human brain is very difficult. But I remember when I had you and 3 other super soldiers on my show, Starseed Radio, a few years ago, that right after the show, the station crashed. It almost wiped out all their archives in Texas. And out of my 3-hour show, the 1 hour I had you 4 on was totally erased from their archives, from their database, and almost wiped the entire system out. Now, that's never happened before. But again, the elites do not want this information out. And things like that happen. It's not just by chance. Out of the 3 hours, talk show, that 1 hour was the one. And the super soldier phenomenon, if you will, is a very bridge to getting the real information out of what's happening with the Maya labs and underground facilities, the military-industrial complex. And you have all these people coming out now talking about the jump rooms to Mars. Obama was part of that in CIA. We have 3 credible people that have come out that were in the CIA program with President Barack Obama. We also had whistleblowers come out talking about the moon bases. One guy just came out talking about how he got married out on the moon, and Donald Rumsfeld was there. You're talking about military people that are speaking out, putting their credibility, their lives on the line to get this information out because they had some sort of awakening that what they were involved in, what they were doing was not the way we're supposed to be living. It's a corrupt, Bilderberg-run global elitist society, and people like you that are bearers of the truth that are getting this information out, people have to really research and learn this information for yourself. We always say it's an action-based show, and you just learn this for yourself. So do your own homework and see what resonates with you. But if you look at all the people, thousands of people around the world that are all coming forward talking about these certain topics, Maya Labs, super soldiers, Mars jump programs, I mean, come on, seriously, you think everyone's just crazy making it up? Absolutely not. It's factual data. You have military generals coming forward talking about this stuff. The guys with high IQs that just were indoctrinated and programmed our whole lives to think a certain way and be a certain way, and many people are having this awakening now, and it's as simple as that. You wake up one day, some people have spontaneous awakenings, like many of our guests, like myself, And next thing you know, you're in this entire new realm of reality, but it's the real reality. It's not the reality we've been shaped to believe. And it's amazing. And, I've seen lots of your pictures with needle marks down your spine and then under your, under your nails and inside your mouth. I mean, people, do they think that you're actually injecting yourself and taking these pictures? And, it's crazy to think that all these people around the world are making it up. I think people are crazy if they don't look into this stuff when they hear it. That's why I've always been open. And when I hear new things, that's it. I'm researching, I'm watching videos, I'm doing everything I can to absorb as much information as I can to make a real sound decision on what I believe and what I feel is correct. Like when I had 4 super soldiers on the show and the station crashes and the archives get erased, I wonder why. It's like, come on, seriously? So we know that what we're talking about and these topics are real, and we urge people to learn this information because, as James said, very soon this stuff is coming out. We had Mexico undisclose all their ET files. We just had the Blue Book Project, the Montauk Project go online, 130,000 pages. Germany just is having a hard time keeping their UFO files, and a lot of those have been released. So now we see entire nations releasing their information on UFOs, on ETs, that it's real. It's been here. Eisenhower met 3 times with ETs. The FBI set up the meetings in New Mexico air bases. That's documented. These are not stories we're making up. Like, oh yeah, President Eisenhower met with ETs. Ha ha ha. It's documented. And there's many people that were there that have come forward to talk about it. Google, YouTube this stuff. Do it while you can, because they're limiting information on Google and Facebook and stuff now, and they're monitoring everything. They're trying to take down as much information as you can. But this information is real, and it's based upon factual information that you could find all over the internet or even hear like you're talking about now. And it's up to you, the listener, to go out there and resonate to see what's true to you and what's not, and then make your sound decision. But don't be closed off to everything you hear. Be open, because a lot of this stuff is found in factual data, as I've seen and heard from over the years of interviewing hundreds of people. So, James, definitely, keep doing your work and keep, getting this information out there. And also, I know you're trying to work on a Super Soldier Summit. I know we've had a few of those go off. How is that going, the Super Soldier Summit?
Well, if you go to healingsoulsurvivors.org, there is a little write-up information on that. The goal is to put on a summit in Las Vegas in 2016. However, there is no funding, and I do need some help, someone to help set this up for me, because I've got too many projects on my plate to do it all myself. So if you would like to help and participate, I'm not necessarily saying help financially, certainly that would be a necessary component as well, to make a donation. But if you want to just help put it together, volunteer your time, that would be useful as well. So just send us an email. There's a contact form on that website. So it would be nice to get these summits rolling again, so these people. Are we running out of time?
That's it.
Okay. Bye, everyone.
Atlantic mystery, Atlantis white from history, the truth about the pyramids in ancient Mayan prophecy. Space Odyssey, look into the anomalies and you will find suppression.
Welcome. We are broadcasting live from the mothership. You are tuned in and listening to Starseed Energy Radio with your host Jonah Bolt. Starseed Energy Radio, where you can always tune in to hear the colors and see the music. Starseed Energy Radio goes live in 3, 2, 1.
All right, what's up, Spaceship Earth? Thanks for tuning in. You are now receiving a live transmission from Starseed Radio, where you can always tune in to hear the colors and see the music. I'm your host, Jonah Bolt, the Arcturian Starseed. Today is Friday, August 14th, 2015. We have an awesome show lined up for you today, as always. But first, I want to mention, check out StarseedRadio.com for the latest news and updates. We're always posting up new articles, new feeds. We have our new live earthquake and volcano watcher, as well as space weather at starseedradio.com. And all the articles, information we do talk about, we do post up also on our Facebook page. So please go to our Facebook page, like us, follow our Twitter feed. And if you haven't called our toll-free number to receive information about our free elite shungite that we're sending out to you, please call toll-free 888-400-2328 anytime, 24/7. If someone does not pick up, just leave us a voicemail and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. Again, that toll-free number is 888-400-2328. And we will also send you some free energy information. We have about 15 PDF files I would love to send out to you. Just fill out the form if you want on starseedtechnologies.com, or you could just ask us when you call the toll-free number. Again, that's 888-400.
Russia and Czech. That was the reason that alliance was created in the first place. And now we've really slid back toward a Cold War mentality ever since the East Ukrainian occupation. And supposedly there are intelligence coming out from the U.S. as well as international intelligence agencies saying that the war is secretively so bad between separatists in Ukraine and the Russian occupation in eastern Ukraine that Russia has actually mobile Predatorians, which is pretty alarming. But they basically are saying, the think tank, that this could lead to a larger escalation and possible a greater war conflict between NATO and Russia.
And this is a story we've been covering for a while, because this story could really, throw us right into World War III. It's a story that you should not ignore. This is a good a story to follow to see the propaganda that's going on both sides. Russia, Putin saying, Russia has no involvement, but then if you look at like Vice News and other things that are embedded in Ukraine, you could totally see that there are Russian troops, and the Russian troops are even taking selfies and posting it on Instagram inside Ukraine, and Putin's on TV saying, Russian soldiers, we're not in Ukraine. But then if you go to their Facebook page of Russian soldiers, like many documentaries have pointed out, they're definitely in Ukraine. A cool article also I wanted to mention, this one is Google is testing drones in U.S. airspace by piggybacking on a NASA exemption. So now Google is putting drones in space. Interesting article. And also the consensus record of 42.1 million immigrants in U.S. now, which Mexicans drive the latest surge. But the growth in just the last year, 100,000 Mexican immigrants, according to the Center for Immigration Studies. And this is a big issue, because as they're allowing immigrants to come in, flowing into Mexico, you also have the violent offenders. You have violent crime offenders, sex offenders coming in, drug dealers, and they know this.
And many other typhoons that have impacted Taiwan and the Philippines and mainland China. And they're saying that this could end up being a super El Niño, which would bode well later into the winter and fall if it comes out to be like the 97 event. In the 97 event, there was a lot of rain for the Western United States. So that being said, we could actually see some drought curtail itself later into the fall and winter in California, because right now they have such deficits along with the wildfires going on currently still over there. And in regards to other news globally, China is after the explosion in Tianjin, which is about 70 miles east of Beijing. It was a burgeoning port town. And we were talking about this yesterday, John, later in the evening, about the videos that we saw of how tremendous this explosion was. And they said the mushroom cloud was only a 20-story building, but you look at the mushroom cloud on the second explosion, which was equivalent to 21 tons of TNT, or about the third explosive capability of a tactical nuclear weapon. Right now
China's news is reporting that only 40 people died or something like that. We know that they're obviously
it's up to 56 now.
Yeah, 56. My butt. We know a lot more people perish than that. If you saw the aerial footage like we were watching last night when we were talking, you see entire 10-20 story buildings just gutted out. This explosion was way more than 20 stories high, but we all know that China is a communist country, and they tell the people what they want, so we're definitely not going to get the full story.
No, that's always the case, because they have much more stringent controls than the United States does in regards to making sure that they don't have any leaking of information. In regards to other news, Russia and NATO are actively preparing for war. And as we know, if you know the history of NATO was originally created to actually or any kind of solar flare over the next day or so. And in regards to other news, earthquake activity is on the uptick. There was a 2.5 magnitude earthquake early this morning in New Jersey town, and preceding that, Queensland, Australia, had an earthquake as well off the central coast, east central coast near Queensland again, and that's just one in many of tremors. This tremor was only a magnitude 4.0 near Hervey Bay in Noosa just after 11 a.m. on Friday. They said, though, don't worry, it's just an aftershock from the preceding earthquake. So as of right now, the local geological survey in Australia is saying that everything should be fine there. And in regards to other news, the USGS says that nearly half Americans in the United States, about 148 million Americans in the United States, in a new report, are susceptible to earthquakes. As we know, the California and the Pacific Northwest with the Wanda Cook and the Cascadia subduction zone, but certain areas that you may not know actually can experience high hazard earthquakes are in South Carolina, where they had an earthquake in the mid-19th century. It was a pretty sizable earthquake at 7.0. So we have to keep in mind that there are areas that earthquakes can occur, even in the northeast United States, where they give it a high possibility of an earthquake. So that being said, a lot of people have to be very aware that earthquakes can and do happen throughout the United States. It's one of the more geologically active continents. North America is one of the more geologically active continents in the world. So on to other news. In regards to other events going on. People may not know this, but the El Nino essentially has really put a damper on any hurricane activity in the Atlantic Basin. However, in the Western Pacific, it's been a gangbuster year with Sotalor and
2328. With that, we have a very special guest joining us on this show today, Brad Kallio. He'll be coming on in just a minute after our daily download with Ryan Matthew Dernick. And on the second half of the show, we're going to be joined by Edward Twitchell Hall III, one of the original organizers in Occupy Wall Street movement. He has done some amazing work since Occupy and is involved with a lot of different new movements to sustain the planet, work with indigenous people, and he is a way shower of the light all over the planet. We'll be joined by Edward Twitchell Hall in just a minute. With that being said, we're going to start off this show with our daily quote. We are broadcasting live from San Jose, Costa Rica, the capital. The quote for today goes, "The scientists of today think deeply instead of clearly. One must be sane to think clearly, but one can think deeply and be quite insane." That quote from our boy, Nikola Tesla. I'll post that little quote up on our Twitter feed and also starseedradio.com and also our Facebook. And with that, we're going to jump into the news of what's happening with Mother Earth Gaia today with the Daily Download with Ryan Matthew Dernick from bellwetherpost.com. Ryan, good morning. How are you today?
Very well, Jenna. How you doing today?
Doing good. I don't hear any screaming kids today, so sounds like you're in a quiet area.
Well, they're in the distance right now. We're at the pool.
There you go. Excellent. Well, let's get the daily download going. What's happened with Mother Gaia today? I know lots of changes are happening. Please give us a download.
Definitely. Well, solar activity in regards to solar flares is returning very low levels following a brief flurry of minor flares from the new sunspot AR2401. As the growth from the sunspot is slowed, however, so its rate of flare production. NOAA forecasters estimate only a 10% chance of an M-class flare, and